Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of the Davidson Boswell Show. Very excited for our guest today. You guys are probably familiar with her work: journalist, activist, cultural critic, I'll say. Taylor Lorenz, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We got lunch a few weeks ago in New York, and we talked about a lot of really cool stuff. And you kind of went through all the different publications that you've worked for over the years. New York Times, freelance for like the Rolling Stone. And so I think you're uniquely set up to talk about this. Um, this is such a hard left turn from that introduction, but um, Palestinian journalists are being targeted relentlessly in Gaza and even the West Bank. And in almost every profession, there's a level of solidarity, usually, with people when they're injured or killed. And that's lacking with people like Anas al Sharif, who was killed recently, the 5 journalists that were killed in the hospital. So I'm curious to hear your take on why the silence is happening and if you've witnessed the kind of way that manifests in your journalism career.
Yeah, definitely. I guess like it's extremely disappointing and hypocritical of all of these, not even just the media companies themselves not acknowledging it, but these press freedom groups, all of these people that incited such a rightful, justifiable panic, especially under Trump's first term, of the rise of authoritarianism and the lack of press freedom. And then we see record numbers of, quite literally hundreds of journalists slaughtered in cold blood, knowingly
Mm-hmm.
by the Israeli government. And not only do they not talk about it, not only is it not front page news, they don't even acknowledge these people. I mean, they're even their own staffers, like Reuters and the AP. This should be front page news, right? And they're not even naming the journalists in their posts about it, in their tweets and stuff. So I think it's just appalling. And it just shows that the Western world and Western institutional powers, they don't care. All of this stuff about freedom of the press and freedom of speech, they don't actually hold those values. It's complete hypocrisy. It's just, journalists are useful basically as long as they serve power here in America. And if they aren't serving, American imperialism, then they're not valuable.
Yeah, and say they did want to run a story with that, right? They were like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's have one of our major, like Maureen Dowd or somebody huge, Say, I doubt she would be the one to
Yeah.
do it, but but like somebody that would be like, okay, let's run with the story. Would the editorial board step in? Would people like at the top of these organizations kill the story, or is there just literally does it go all the way down? Do
It
the
wouldn't.
journalists themselves not care?
The people that are in those positions of power in those mainstream media orgs, they're in those positions of power because of the belief system that they hold. There is no
Mm-hmm.
one in the upper echelons of these outlets like the New York Times that cares about Palestinian journalists. There's not, because if there were those people, it would be reflected in their editorial coverage, and it's not. There's Zionists. They're all pro-war. Let's not forget that the New York Times manufactured consent for the Iraq War as well. They're
Mm-hmm.
pro-police. Like, I mean, the reason that these people are in the positions that they're in is because of the beliefs they hold. No anti-war advocate is going to be able to rise the ranks of legacy media. No journalist that is interested in having solidarity with, like other journalists or even just the other non-journalist Palestinians that are being killed. You're never going to get promoted at an organization like that. And this is a part of why I didn't want to build my career in traditional media, because there's no point in building your career in an industry where you just have to sort of increasingly compromise your moral values to get higher and higher. And then you get to the top, and then what? At that point, you're just serving capital and
Right.
serving a horrible genocidal government. So
Yeah. Do you anticipate this eroding their cultural cachet over time? Do you think like they're going to become less relevant? Or do you think just like the gravitational pull of these organizations is so powerful that they'll continue to stumble on? Or does this portend kind of a shift in what people are going to pay attention to long term, especially people under the age of, let's say, 65?
yeah, I hope that this is a wake up call. I hope that people can see these issues and see the way the traditional media covers things and realize that the traditional media is completely like in the tank for capitalism, like the
Yeah.
US government, like, they exist to uphold institutional power. That is what they are. They are media institutions that exist to uphold the interests of business and capital. And that is what they do. And, I don't think that that is where we should get our news. I think that they sometimes sort of do good work because they have this sheen of like needing to do some level of, good investigative journalism, right? Like to sort of maintain this brand as like truth tellers. But they're only good on certain topics. Like they're only, they'll sort of like they're super antagonistic of Trump, and then they're not antagonistic once a Democrat gets into office. We saw this
Right.
completely with like the COVID coverage and other stuff. So they don't have solidarity with working people, poor people, disabled people, struggling people. Those people are never centered in any of the news coverage in these mainstream media outlets unless it's as some sort of sad story of the tragedy. So it's sort of like a rich person on a Sunday can open up the paper. Oh, isn't that sad? But of course, we're not going to examine any of the structural problems that led us there. We're just going to sort of talk about this little isolated tragedy over there.
Right. Yeah. It's there's never any level of class analysis when it comes to yeah. I guess that would give up the whole game. So you've been doing a really interesting reporting. I think people don't look to the UK a lot, but in a lot of ways, it seems like almost a laboratory for what could happen in America in terms of like surveillance and government control. They're arresting people on the streets that are just holding signs that say "Free Palestine." There was a mass arrest that happened a few weeks ago, but and I didn't know about this until you actually reported on it. But there was a UK privacy law kind of rammed through, and there's so much shit happening in America, people didn't even really see it. So could you explain kind of what this is, what it is supposed to do, like what they're saying it's for, and what it's actually for?
Yeah. So in the UK, they have UCOSA, and then here we have COSA, which they're seeking to pass. Both of these laws are very similar. They're online child safety laws. That's what it stands for, the Kids Online Safety Act. Never believe they always name these laws like insane, like it's some law that gives like billions to Israel, and it's like the Saving America law or whatever. Like it's all just like such bullshit. But so one thing that, as Democrats have completely abandoned civil liberties and basically they've sort of ceded this idea of like free speech to Republicans, even though Republicans also don't give a shit about free speech. They've really effectively kind of been able to pass a bunch of, and there's actually 11 state laws right now seeking to pass sort of similar laws that would remove anonymity completely from the internet. And the reason they want to remove anonymity completely from the internet and keep people offline is because the internet is the most powerful tool that we've ever had in our lifetime for activism and social change. And no one knows this more than, by the way, the far right. Like their platforms are going to be fine. But yeah,
why is that? Just to interject, why would
because
far-right platforms?
Let me explain. I mean, in some sense, they're going to have anonymity removed, but what we've seen is this really selective enforcement. So, with these right-wing platforms, the TikTok ban is a really good example, right? Like TikTok, first of all, Joe Biden passed the TikTok ban. The Democrats did that. The Democrats did that to crack down on speech about Israel on the app. Insane. They opened the door under that TikTok law. Now the government can exert control in the App Store in ways that it never could before, which is horrifying. They could also ban the Al Jazeera app potentially under that same law, but it's selective enforcement. So Trump is saying, oh, well, we're not going to kick you out, but of course you better fix your algorithm. You better put this IDF soldier in charge, the former IDF soldier who's now in charge of like the community guidelines there or whatever. And so, I reported on this at the inauguration, but TikTok had this big inauguration event. They brought all these influencers that had previously been banned. TikTok has allowed a lot of far-right influencers back on the app. The pro-Palestine people that are banned, they're not getting that second chance. But the right is getting the second chance because there's sort of tacit support from the administration. And so that's what I mean when like a lot of the left and progressives will be deplatformed, especially because they consider it adult content. There's the broader effort in terms of like what they're pushing these like restrictive child safety laws under is this idea of like protecting children from adult content. We saw how this is playing out in the UK. So like you mentioned, this law passed. I think a lot of people weren't paying attention to it. It passed, and overnight, all of all of like, I mean, you have to upload, you have to scan your biometric data to use Spotify because there's adult content in the lyrics of the songs. You have to upload your driver's license, you know, to go on YouTube or Reddit. They have to biometrically track every single thing that you do, every single thing that you watch is now going to be tied to you and your offline identity. They're going to be able to harvest 10 times more data on you. And they're blocking off access to information about LGBTQ rights, abortion, you know, even Alcoholics Anonymous forums for children to actually get help if they're sexually assaulted. All of these things are blocked as adult content. You know what's not blocked as adult content? Right-wing PragerU content.
That's crazy. Yeah, the like Christopher Columbus saying that slavery wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
like that.
That's not blocked as right. That's totally fine. But even just content from an LGBTQ creator who's visibly gay or trans, that's blocked as adult. And so that's what these laws are about. And by the way, the Heritage Foundation, who's been doing so much pushing all of this, pushing, you know, all of these restrictions, they have said that is what they want to do. They came out and said this. I think it was last year or 2 years ago. Mike Masnick at Tech Dirt covered it. Saying we want the Kids Online Safety Act to pass so that we can censor the internet, like with censor LGBTQ content. Marsha Blackburn said that the Kids Online Safety Act needs to pass to basically to keep kids from the transgender in this society.
Right. Yeah. So this is very dystopian. That's like, and I gotta say, like, it'll be people like me and you that are in the crosshairs. You know what I mean?
We're getting deplatformed. Yes, 100%. But it bothers me because these leftists, they don't understand. Like, I don't think leftists have a good understanding of tech policy, and I totally get it because it's like, you know, 15 levels down from like all of the other like abhorrent stuff that's happening, and like aside from tech policy reporters and like there's not that many people covering this stuff, but these laws have massive effects. And I think a lot of leftists are like, well, the internet is bad. We should censor the internet. The internet is destroying kids' mental health. Yeah. It's not, first of all, that's a bunch of like reactionary myth stuff second. But I agree that the internet is frankly warped by capitalism. I would love to break up these companies. I would love to really regulate them in ways that are less, so that they can be less predatory. The way we need to do that is through comprehensive data privacy reform. That is the diametric opposite of what these laws will do. These laws mandate more data collection on children specifically.
That's crazy. But does this represent like an opportunity for a platform if they're gonna fight it, or if they're going to like allow, or is it just going to be this ironclad like, okay, yeah.
No, smaller platforms like Blue Sky are going to be gone. I mean, Blue Sky's already shut down in Mississippi because Mississippi instituted one of these laws, and Blue Sky is not available there. The only platform, this is why it's such a reward to big tech. And by the way, you know who owns the third-party data verification? So a bunch of these top platforms are going to be able to build their own internal verification systems. And then there's these third-party ID verification systems, including Persona, one of the biggest ones, owned by Peter Thiel.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna guess.
It's all just a big data play, but it rewards the biggest, most evil people in tech under the guise of child safety. And by the way, same thing with these school cell phone bans, which are very tied up in all of this. Like, none of this is about protecting children. None of these people have the interest of children at heart.
It's a Trojan horse, essentially. They're just like kids, and then like they take, okay.
They're like, kids, we have to protect kids. Actually, we're going to censor them, censor the internet. We're going to take away cell phones while also signing a contract with a company that scans every kid's face when they walk in for safety, and, you know, use it to determine who's a school shooter. Like, that's the type of like world we're moving to. Right. And it's terrifying. And cell phones, I know there's a lot of tech backlash, and we should have criticism of these billionaires, but we have to fight these child safety laws. They're not child safety laws.
Oh, that's an interesting, because even fighting a child safety law.
Right. It's like fighting the Patriot Act. Like I'm a millennial. So like I came of age in like the Patriot Act or was it the American Act, or, you know, they had all these stupid names after 9/11. And we know what happened, by the way, in the wake of that stuff.
Yeah, the American Rescue Plan was the largest single transfer of wealth from the 99% to the 1%. You know what I mean? But you call it the American Rescue Plan so that you can do it. Well, that's depressing. I hope we can talk again before that happens. But all right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about And I think probably contributes to you sometimes getting targeted online is you wear a mask pretty frequently, right?
Yes.
Out and around, which I applaud you for. There's like COVID is actually hitting New York again right now. A lot of people
Yeah.
have it. There's another spike happening. Long COVID is not really reported on. I guess like there's a lot of reasons for that. But you have been a big advocate for, I don't even know what you would call it, like long COVID awareness or just
It's not
people
even long.
taking.
I hate the phrase long COVID.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
very silly. That doesn't sort of exist. I mean, it sort of exists, I guess, for HIV or it's AIDS, but that's like you meet a very specific diagnostic criteria. Long COVID just means your body's been damaged by COVID. The
I see.
reality is that, and your body can be damaged a million times, right? Like in all these different ways. And each time you get sick, your body's damaged. Nobody gets a COVID infection and is okay or their health is better. No one.
Right.
You get one COVID infection, you are more likely to have a lot of other health issues. You get two COVID infections, you're even more likely to have all these other health issues. No one is immune to the harm of these viruses. Some people, if they're younger and healthier, they're not gonna, they won't have those like acute symptoms as much. But viruses and disease are bad. I can't believe this needs to be said in the year 2025. But
Whoa.
like
Slow down.
airborne disease is real. I know. And like you have these people
Yeah.
that don't wear masks or that are like, well, I'm fine. It's like, okay, so would you go chug, water full of shit every day and be like, I'm fine because like I had cholera a few times and I actually recovered fine.
Right.
Okay. You probably
Yeah.
stop chugging the shit water. And
Well, yeah, RFK took a swim in a river full of shit. So, I mean,
right, like that, but that's like the mentality that they're using. And like we know so much more since COVID hit about airborne disease, not just COVID, but the flu, all of these other airborne viruses that we now know spread through the air like smoke. We don't get individual air. Air is a shared resource. So, if you're outside and there's not a lot of people around, yeah, of course, I don't wear a mask if I'm outside. There's no one around. Like, I'm not like, I'm pretty distant or I think, like when we have lunch or something.
Right.
But if you're on a subway, if you're at a pharmacy, if you're indoors anywhere where there's not, where there's transmission, like wear a mask.
Yeah.
It's totally normalized in massive other swaths of the world. But there's something that like, I think leftists in America, some of them are they've just bought into this like far right nonsense. And they think that the vaccine, they're like, I'm vaccinated. It's like, yeah, I'm vaccinated too. Vaccines don't mean that your body is not harmed. Like, I think they actually are just as, and I do a lot of vaccine outreach and education. And they're very misinformed. And also we're not getting the vaccines. Let's be real. They're like,
they're not putting money into that. Yeah.
Not only that, the vaccines aren't very much, and they're trying to pull them off the shelves this fall.
Oh man. So what, I guess like I wanted to hold on that point, like why Americans won't do it, because yes, I was in Thailand and Cambodia, and any sort of shared space, people were very willing to mask up. It seems almost like a branding exercise of like being really hyper independent. Like you can't tell me what to do. And you're right. That does this like kind of distrust of authority extends even into leftist circles, right? They're like, oh, well, and now that Trump is the president, right? They would be like, oh, I'm sticking it to the man. So we really are fucked by
But
our
they're like,
hyper individuality.
Yeah. And these leftists have adopted this hyper individuality. Like, even if you personally you think you'll be fine with COVID, you could spread it and kill someone. Like, I could never live with myself, especially these low wage workers. We know that poor people, disabled people, the unhoused people, they all have higher rates. They are dying at higher rates of COVID and permanently disabled by it. Like, you could literally just not do that by wearing a mask. It's so easy. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
You don't have to wear it every single time wear it half the time. That's great. Like, that's a huge step forward. You're just like, every chain of transmission matters, and airborne disease is real. And it's this like deep-seated denialism and individual sort of, I think it's ableism, frankly, that makes them not want to wear it. They don't want to admit that they're human beings and they're,
I feel like if the death rate from COVID was like 5% higher, people would be like, but I know that like when I was near China, they've had like a history of going through like massive respiratory outbreaks, you know what I mean? And this like imprints on your culture, right?
Well,
like,
the deaths are pretty high, by the way. They don't care about the deaths because there's people still dying, right? There's still thousands of people dying a month. Like, and we see the charts, that Fred chart of like the disability, right? Where it's the real danger of COVID is of course long-term. It's this like, and I give other examples of this too. Like if you get HIV, That's just a flu. It feels like a little bit of a cold. But you understand that long term, and not everyone that has HIV gets AIDS, which is the whole thing that's used by HIV denialists and stuff. But like that, you understand, okay, this virus is going to cause long term harm. If you get Epstein-Barr virus, mono, you might not even know. You might just feel a little bit tired for a couple of days. Long term, you can end up getting multiple sclerosis. So diseases, like, it's like we're living in the 1800s. It's like, guys, disease is not good. It's not good. And we can mitigate disease, many different diseases, not just COVID, by wearing a mask, because you breathe in the air, the infected air.
Yeah, man. I'm with you. I feel like starting this fall, we'll probably see like a big uptick, and just know that you can prevent that if you want to.
Also, I will say one thing too. I think the government did such a bad job because people think surgical masks and cloth masks protect them, and they need KN95s or N95s. So just so people know, and I think that that's a big thing too, because people will be like, well, I masked and I got sick. And it's like, yeah, but you're wearing a surgical mask. That doesn't protect you against airborne disease. You need to wear the point is to seal your face off from bad air as much as you can. So
it's tough. It's tough like this. I'm sorry to play devil's advocate, but like live performance is really difficult. You know what I mean? Like
if you're on stage, you mean?
Yeah,
of course.
So,
I wear a mask on stage for interviews, but I do a lot of television and stuff. You can't wear a mask for that. But the audience, like, and
true,
you're on stage, like you're on stage probably getting a completely different airflow than the people that are all crowded at the thing. So I'd say of course performers probably aren't going to mask. They have to sing, they have to perform, but you're down there in the pit surrounded by other people. Like put a fucking mask. You're just like huffing other people's disgusting air.
Well, I hope we do. I hope we do get to see that, like people being a little more, and also like it's a way to show that you care about other people without even having to say anything. It's almost like I was talking to a Palestinian activist, and it was like one advantage of the keffiyeh is when I see you wearing one, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get along with that person. I'm gonna like them instantaneously. So in a different way, the mask can do the same thing. So if you okay, we're heading to this dystopia where there's like 4 people that own all media and all the capital, right? There's 8 people who have more money than half of the global population. Are there publications outside of User Mag, which I know you own and run? Is there a place that you go to that you think has good, reliable reporting on empire, on capitalism? Like, what do you recommend?
Yes, I'll give you a few. But number one is actually this disabled writer. She writes a Substack called The Gauntlet, and her name is Julia Doubleday. She's written so many good, like just since we were talking about masking, she writes so much about health. And she's a former labor organizer. She's amazing. She's really good. And she's written a lot of guides for people that are like, maybe you've kind of checked out and you're not up with COVID stuff. Like you should just read her work because I think she makes a really good sort of explainers on like why the vaccines are not enough, for instance, and other things. So she's really good. And I think she's under the radar. So like, I just want to recommend her because people don't know about her. And then there's just a bunch of people that I'm like fans of. I mean, I love like Abby Martin, Ryan Graham, The Intercept. Well, he was at The Intercept, now at Drop Site. They're great. Drop Site. I mean, Drop Site's just been doing incredible work. I write for Zateo sometimes. Prem has been doing amazing work there on the Palestine stuff. I know there's just like so many people I follow online that I'm like, but those are the main sort of outlets. In terms of like traditional media outlets, I don't really, I read stuff on there, but it's usually not as good.
Yeah. It's good to know, and I've talked about this on my show before. It's good to know how they're going to try and sanitize something. You know what I mean? Like it's good to like see basically what the opposition is talking about, like how things are being framed. And like, so you need to know why and how you're getting propagandized in order to properly fight it. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing the show. This was great. And I wanted to ask before you go, to basically promote yourself, right? So where can people read you? Where can people see you? Yeah.
Well, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have a Patreon also where I do like bonus content. And I run a newsletter called User Mag. It's just usermag.co. And I post everywhere online. I'm on like Instagram and TikTok and all that as well. So I'm just Taylor
and it's
Lorenz.
all under your name, right?
I'm Taylor Lorenz everywhere. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Great to see you, and talk soon.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.